Hey everybody, this is John. Today I wanted to go over how we would program in-season versus off-season with our athletes. There's a lot more things that can kind of come involved with what we're going to talk about today, like days that you're going to train on, how many days a week, stuff like that. It really kind of depends once you get into the thick of it, and depends on your team and how they're doing. But for the most part, these are kind of general guidelines of what we would think about with going on in-season versus off-season. Now, a big controversy, or not controversy, is a big thing that people think about is they say, oh, well, when they're in season, they don't need to strength train, versus off season, that's when we want to get all the strength training. You need to strength train all year. There's just a different game plan with how you end up doing that. Because say if you want to be an athlete that goes and plays in college, they're training all the time. Off season, they're training 4 or 5 days a week. And then in season, they're probably going to be doing at least 2 days a week. It just changes based off of what the demand is. So pretty much in season, we want to have less volume. Now you can do this a few different ways. You can say, most of the time you're going to say less sets or reps, so you're not doing as much work. Say you're going to say in off season, we're doing 4 or 5 sets. You might do say 3 or 4 sets of say big lifts, maybe even in 2 sets. And then the reps wise, we don't want to go too high depending on the movement, because that would probably create soreness, which is not our goal in season, because we want them to go and play at their best. But most what you're going to do is you're going to do both of less sets and reps and less movements. So there's going to be less movements in the workout. Say in the off season you're doing 12, in season maybe you're doing 6. Okay, depends on what it is. Maybe you do all 12, but you do less sets and reps. You can also do that as well. We want to stay away from movements that are normally associated with increase of soreness. So a lot of movements where you are stretching a muscle, okay, say you're doing an overhead tricep extension, okay, you're going to get more sore doing an overhead tricep extension than you would with a regular tricep extension, because this is getting stretched, okay, and then you're doing the movement. So a Bulgarian split squat where you put your one leg up on an elevated surface and then you do a lunge up and down. A Romanian deadlift or a stiff-legged deadlift where you're going to go hips back, okay, that's going to create some hamstring soreness. A Bulgarian split squat is going to get your quads sore. Any high rep presses, so say you're doing like over 10 reps of presses, tends to get your shoulders, chest sore. Or a slow eccentrics where say you're deadlifting and then on the way down you're going to go a 10-second negative and then you would come up fast. That's going to create soreness. So things like that, we would say, you know what, if we do them, we're going to do less sets and reps, okay? But we have to make sure the intensity is not very high with them, or the sets and reps of it, because they tend to get athletes sore. So going really heavy on Bulgarian split squats, even though they're an awesome movement in season, or doing them too often is going to get them sore. Okay, longer warm-ups, because they're doing a lot in their sport, they're probably beat up. They're going to need a longer warm-up to feel better. We would say, hey, instead of say an 8-minute warm-up, let's do like a 12, just increasing it, getting them feeling better. And also with that, we would pair that up with more mobility work, because they're probably sore from games. They could probably be a little bit hurt. Maybe tissue needs to get some more blood flow to it. So working on getting them moving better, getting joints to move like how joints are supposed to move. And with sprinting or jumping, we're going to have lesser intensity and volume. We still want them to sprint and practice that. They're going to be doing their sport, which I imagine has lots of sprinting and jumping anyways, depending on the sport. So when they're practicing that, we can do that, but they can do more of it, or they can do additional sprinting and jumping. We just want to have less intensity, okay, and less volume of that. So when coaches say, oh, we need to get in shape, so they do a lot more of sprinting and jumping, and then they also play the sport a lot, okay, you're just wearing them down and actually getting them out of shape, okay, so that they, one, would get shin splints, which we don't want to have, okay, and then 2, getting them tired so they're never going to really perform at their best anyways. Now in season, there's really kind of nothing off of the table, okay, so we really can do, we want to do way more volume, okay, but we do that with periodization. So we'll say, hey, we're going to do more sets and reps and more movements, but we're going to go up, we're going to have high volume weeks, you're going to go low volume weeks, and you're going to kind of alternate through those throughout the off season to take advantage of them healing, but also going heavier. We can't just keep going higher, higher, higher and doing more, and then them just getting beat up. So you have times where we have less sets, but the intensity is still going to be up pretty much the entire time, okay? and then we can do a lot more movements in the workouts. We're focusing on big lifts now, whereas with the in season, we're still focusing on big lifts and accessories, but they just have less of them. We want the big lifts, we want the accessories that make those movements better, and then we do a lot more isolation movements of, like say I call it Pump City, where we get the guys, they want to do curls and they want to do tricep extensions. That one makes them feel better. In season, I'm not like, hey, let's go do bis and tris. We're focused on you just pressing. Let's just press. Let's go to something else, because you're just using, you're going to get sore, and you're just using energy that we can use in your sport. So pretty much no movements off of the table. So we can do those Bulgarian split squats. We can do high reps of them. We can do heavier weights of them. We can do them more often. You can do RDLs, high rep presses, and you just have to program it in and go into the periodization model and get an idea of, hey, when is a good time to do all of these? And then also monitor your athletes while you're doing it. Still working on mobility. We have an adequate warm-up. So say instead of doing that 12-minute warm-up, we're thinking more like 8. We're still effectively getting them a good warm-up. We're still always doing mobility, getting them in better positions. It's not mainly as a focus as it would be in the in-season. Sprinting and jumping are at higher volumes and intensities, because we want to train them, okay, at say their highest. So we want to say we are going to be training at say 90 plus % with their sprints, and then jumping we want to do more of them, okay, and then focus on putting force into the ground and teaching them that. Now, the off season is where it's kind of like fun training. This, you're already kind of tired, so mentally the athletes going into these, typically less is more. So we'd say, hey, we just want them to get something in. So typically, like I said, it's going to be our bigger lifts, some accessories, okay, mobility stuff, get them moving and feeling better, and then getting them out of the gym because they need to recover. Because no matter what, in season or off season, one of the biggest focuses we have is, one, are you resting? Are you sleeping well? Are you drinking enough water? And are you eating enough? One thing that we do with our athletes during the warm-up, I go around and I'll talk to every single one. What'd you have for breakfast? What'd you have for lunch? And then what we do is we coach them on, hey, you need to be eating more, because like a lot of kids will get sick or they'll be like dead and they're tired. And then that leads to you getting hurt because you're not correctly fueling yourself. You're going to come in. We don't want anybody passing out or throwing up just because they didn't eat enough. And then also too, if you're doing all of this work, you're just going to wear yourself down if you're not recovering enough and fueling your body. You're kind of going to do this work kind of for nothing. You're going to get real sore, be real tired, and you're not going to have any gains from it because you're not fueling yourself, and then you're not resting for it. And then a lot of our athletes, say summertime, which is typically the off season for most athletes, they're going to go to tournaments and they're going to do all these things in the sun for hours on end and then not drink any water and then be mad that they didn't perform well. And it's like, well, one, if you weren't eating and you weren't hydrated, you aren't going to perform well because you don't feel good. So this is kind of how we would program our in-season versus off-season. And then, like, again, no matter what, we're focusing on all these things year-round to make sure that they're healthy and can perform and not get hurt. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out.